Hello, welcome back
Hi,
to the
everyone.
Lyrically Speaking podcast. So, today we're actually going to do a song which is really new. We often do older songs that are
Yeah,
from like the 2010s, 2000s,
yeah,
90s,
90s, 2000s.
90s, stuff like that. But now we're actually going to do something that's really, really new. So this song that we're going to cover is released in 2025. Really, it's hard to describe the song without really giving away who the artist is. But just to say, this artist has been going since the 80s, actually, I believe, since the 80s or
It
early
feels
90s.
like my whole lifetime, to be honest.
Honestly, literally, it is. It really is our whole lifetime. This artist was one of the first artists who was able to make a very successful crossover from music into acting. They are a master actor. That's coming from them themselves in their own words.
Mm.
A master actor. They have won Oscars. They have won Grammys. Just an all-round what you might call performer and entertainer. However, recently this artist had quite a lot of controversy, and we won't go too much into the controversy, but this song has been birthed from some of that controversy. So the song that I'm
Well,
talking
it
about
has. That's
is, it has. Yeah, let's be honest. So the song that I'm talking about is Beautiful Scars by none other than our very own Will Smith. Now, Will Smith has not released a song since 2000 and 2005, I believe. Let me just make sure that's right. You're
it's
gonna have
been
to
a it's been a
out.
hot minute, a
It's
long
been a
time.
hot minute since we've heard from Will Smith. I'm
In
just gonna,
fact,
because I actually wrote it
my
down.
last memory or recollection of his music
Yep,
was Wild Wild West, Big Willie style. I
yep.
don't know why I can't remember much after
Yeah,
that, even though I know he has released
2005.
2005.
2005 was his last release, and the album
And
was
what
called
was
Lost
that?
and Found. Now, the songs that you'll know from that, and this was that he did produce this with Cool and Dre, Timberland, Z Jeff was there as well. But the biggest song off the album was a song called Switch.
Oh, yeah. I remember. How did it do? Because
Do you?
I don't think it
So
did well, did it?
it did okay. Switch was the biggest success. It hit number 7 on the
Oh,
Billboard
not
Hot
bad.
100. The album did okay. It wasn't the success of his previous Big Willie style, which is the one that you remember. So didn't hit the success of Big Willie style, but that's it. So that's 2005. So he's back 20 years later making new hits. Now there are a
That's a
couple of
long
hits that have come off
time.
of this new album. He's releasing an album in March. What's the album going to be called? I think it's going to be called Based on a True Story. Yeah, Based on a True Story is going to be released, scheduled for release in March. So a number of tracks that have come off the album. One of them is a song called Work of Art, which also seems to have similar themes to Beautiful Scar around finding, and I guess the theme is finding the beauty in the broken. So let's get into these lyrics. It says, fly as an eagle, fresh out of Philly. Yeah, I still rep the city. So for those of you who don't know, Will Smith is from Philly. He's always repped that he's from Philly. Even
Mm,
in The Fresh Prince, he was from Philadelphia. That was his thing, West
yes.
Philadelphia, born and raised, right? So that's always been his thing. So he's still repping, saying he's still repping the city. Mirrors on the wall worth half a billy. I'm assuming that's him referring to his worth. He's worth half a billy. Like I say, he's made a very successful transfer to acting, and he is really a master actor. Because I'm an icon, somebody you should base your life on, that you should place your sights on, shot on Canons and Nikons. Okay.
Okay, so he's really bigging himself up. He's bringing out the bravado. And that reference to Icon, his son released a really popular song. I think it went a bit viral called Icon a
I
few years ago.
see.
And Will really jumped on that song and kind of, in my view,
Mm.
almost tried to take the limelight from Jay. His name's Jaden, isn't it? His
Jaden,
son.
Jaden Smith,
And it
yes.
was like, sit down, Will. Let your son have this moment to himself. But he tried to make a remix. He made a parody of it.
Mm.
I think he was proud. He was
Yes.
proud of his son, but he did too much. And now he's kind of taking the concept from his son's song, Icon, and putting it
But
in this song.
you could say, we could talk about this, because you might say that what he was really trying to do was use his influence to support his son at the
No, he
same
was already doing well. No. The song had already blown up.
Yeah.
His son didn't need it. And the
Mm.
impression I get from Jaden is he's trying to kind of create his own
Yes.
lane and his own identity
He's
that's
trying
not
to
the same
find
as his
himself.
dad's.
Agree.
So I don't think he wants, from what I perceive, his dad to be saying, oh, let me come in and support you and help you get that off the ground.
We could talk that's one of the things that may come up in our conversation. Will's true reason and rationale for going back into rap at this point in time. But let's keep going with these here lyrics. So he said, turn the cameras and lights on. I've been about the action. Master actor. That's where I said he says it. Master actor. I still rap. Feel like Mike when they turn the mic on. So he said he feels like Mike. I'm assuming that's Mike Jordan. He feels like he's a top dog when they turn
Mike Jordan? Mike Tyson?
Michael Jordan. Is it Mike Tyson?
Oh, really?
I thought Michael Jordan, but then you're thinking Mike Tyson. So maybe that's true. Maybe it's more Mike Tyson. Like,
he's gonna battle.
I'm gonna battle. I'm ready for war.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking.
I was thinking Michael Jordan.
That could work too.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but
that
like Mike.
Yes. Either way, someone who's powerful and excellent at what they do.
100%. And I got Will, and this is where, you know, I'm not gonna hate on him because the wordplay is quite good. Did he write it? We don't really know, because Big Sean is on this, and Big Sean is a very good writer. So we don't know how much of Big Sean's influence there is in these lyrics. And he's got a lot of star guest rappers on a lot of his songs. It's never really, from what I've seen, been him by himself. But anywho, he says, and I got will until the wheels fall off. That's just the will I am. My willpower got these cowards saying he just won't quit. Won't fold and won't switch. I wrote the code. I'm Mr. Smith. So there's quite a lot in there. But he says, I got will until the wheels fall off. So what he's saying is, no matter what, I keep going. But then also, obviously, there's the play on words because his name is Will. So he's got will until the wheels fall off.
He keeps going.
He keeps going. And he says, that's just the will I am. Obviously, that's a play on the will I am, the producer, rapper, entertainer. That's just the will I am. My willpower has got people saying, wow, he's just never going to stop. He just does not stop. And then he says, I wrote the code. I'm Mr. Smith. And I think that wrote the code. It could be two things. I'm not quite sure about that. But I think it's a reference to, because the whole video for this song is based on The Matrix. And you may not know, or you may know.
He passed up on the role.
He passed up on the role. He will never let it go. He needs to just let the thing go. But he won't let the thing go. He keeps telling us that he should have been Neo. He was supposed to be, and he made a bad decision. And our beloved Keanu, who we love Keanu because he keeps it private, keeps it calm, keeps it, low-key. So our beloved Keanu actually took that role. And obviously, we all know the history of that. But he won't let it go. So he's even redone a Matrix-style video.
Yeah.
So that I wrote the code, I'm Mr. Smith. I'm thinking it could be referring to Agent Smith in The Matrix, because Agent Smith was that one that was written in by the Oracle before she defected. And then Agent Smith was the one that was meant to fight Neo.
He had that is the reference.
Control. But then I've seen other gaming references, but I don't understand them. So if you are into gaming and there's some other reference here about coding and Mr. Smith that I've missed, please let us know. I don't know, but I'm thinking it's probably to do with The Matrix there. Then he says, and I think this is why I think it's the Matrix. He says, because this is the Matrix. This is my regular basis. I'm ahead of you players. I'm playing my aces, every card with the faces. And then he goes on to say, I am a king with a queen reign, because he's talking about the cards, and supreme, been through the rain, mud on my feet, tracks in the street, fame can be steep, mask off, see my face ain't clean. Right, so that's what he's saying now. So he's started with all the bravado. He's saying, I'm a celeb, I'm the best, I'm great. But what he's doing is building this story, because now he's saying, well, actually, I'm the best, I'm great, but I'm not perfect. And we hear this all the time. I'm not perfect when I take the mask off. So it's almost like he's being kind of sarcastic, satirical, whatever the word is you might be, when he's talking about I'm an icon, somebody you should place your life on. Then he's going into, actually, the truth of the matter is, mask off, there's more to the story. So he says, mask off, see my face ain't clean, did my dirt, made it hurt worse, went to church feeling cursed, worked on myself, Kintsugi first. Now we're really going to touch on this Kintsugi because he himself in all the interviews really touches on this Kintsugi.
He's obsessed with
topic.
that.
He's obsessed with Kintsugi. And Will Smith does strike me as a type of person that likes to find philosophies to almost, I want to say, excuse his behavior or to try to find some rationale to his crazy behaviors. He will always have a philosophy. You watch him in interviews, there's always some philosophy. Before, back in like 10 years ago, it was The Alchemist. He had this thing about the alchemist and shaping your reality and identity. Now his thing is this concept of kintsugi. And if you don't know about kintsugi, for those listening, it is a Japanese art form where a plate that's broken and smashed, a ceramic plate, is pieced together fused back together with precious metals, so gold, platinum, silver, to create a bowl,
something beautiful
that is beautiful. And you can see the scars, but the scars are now part of the beauty of the final piece. So what was supposed to be terrible, actually, and this is in Will Smith's own words, the final piece looks better than the original. So you can start to see where Will Smith is going with this. He is building this concept and has developed this belief and really planted this belief that where he is now is better than where he was because of all these things that he's done and all the things that have happened and all the things that we've seen actually exist inside of him that he potentially, it seems from this, wore a mask and tried to hide. So he says, on myself, kintsugi first, couldn't tell I've been through hell on earth. The truth and it burns. You live and you learn. I'm like Confucius, who is I think he's a Japanese philosopher. Life is confusing. I hate when I lose it, but I face the music. So I hate when I lose it, but I face the music. Oh, why did he do it? See, I'm only human. And then the chorus says, it's the beautiful scars, yeah. It's the beautiful flaws, yeah. I done fell about 1,000,000 times. Now I rise up again, closer to God. So there's a lot in that. But I'm going to just kick off and ask you, Lou, what do you think personally about those lyrics?
I think it's all very well and good to have flaws and scars and to be human. But when your flaws and scars encroach on someone else and do damage or harm someone else, either through physical abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse, now we're not talking about just having flaws, okay? We're talking about something in you or some issues you have or whatever it is that need to be addressed. And that's all I want to hear Will talking about right now. I don't want to hear about Confucius. I don't want to hear about the Matrix and the Neo role. I want to hear about the work he's done to overcome whatever demons he has not dealt with. Because he can't try and, you know what they did in Men in Black, where they had that device thing to make you forget. Do you remember what it was called?
I do not remember what it was called, but I remember that device you forgot the whole thing like it never happened.
Yes. He can't now try and rewrite history and make us think, oh, I'm just a flawed human. No, that was toxic behavior. It was outlandish. And actually, if people just take 1 second to really reflect on it, you remember and realize how crazy what he did was. And that for me is when we go past just, oh, we've all got flaws. And yes, of course, we're all imperfect. We know this. But that's when we go past that and into a sphere where we've got to do the deep work. And I'm not convinced with lyrics like this that he's done the deep work, because there's still a tinge of victimhood to it. And for me, even when he apologized to Chris, that apology was not it. It was not a proper apology, because anytime we say, oh, I'm sorry, but there's a problem. And then I remember he was apologizing to the mum,
and the brother and everybody and their cats.
Yes. And you can't outrun proper remorse. You can't outrun that. No matter what songs he puts out, no matter what he tries to do, until he properly makes amends, he won't be able to fully feel at peace. He's doing himself harm. I think he's fell into that trap where, because he's had so much professional success, oftentimes there's no reason for you to sit and actually reflect and do the deep work. and say, oh, I actually have these issues and I have that issue, and that is toxic and abusive to other people. There's no reason for him to do it. And that's why sometimes professional success can be a curse when you have, those types of issues. So I want to just see evidence of him doing the work, of him stopping with all this, oh, I'm only human and I'm going to keep rising. No, it's Chris that should be saying those words. It's Chris that should be saying, I'm going to keep
Talk
rising
the
and
ting.
overcoming
Talk the ting.
the past and overcoming setbacks. That's words Chris should be saying.
100%.
Will should be saying, I was full of pride. I thought I didn't need to do the work. I took my issues out on someone else who didn't deserve it. And although I think he said he doesn't like carrying shame, which we should get into.
He has said that. He has said that. And this is where we can go with this, because he's using, I feel, this new launch of a music career to gain affirmation, to cover up that shame once again.
Yes, yeah. I know that he doesn't like shame, but there's another option. It's not shame or nothing. The other option is genuine remorse. And doing what's called repair, which is very important in relationships. So key to make proper repair after setbacks and difficulties and issues like this. And that's where he could reside. He doesn't have to reside. I don't think anyone wants him to, at least I don't want him to be sitting in shame for years and never emerge into society.
Yes,
absolutely
exactly.
not. There you can come back from these things, but not by saying, oh, because I don't want to feel shame, I'm going to run away from it. No, he's got to take proper accountability, do the work that is needed, and then come back. And instead of talking bravado, talk with wisdom and talk 100%, about how 100%. He didn't realize he was carrying this issue.
Exactly.
And he's encouraging men to confront some of their own issues from the past. And he realized he hadn't done the work that was needed. Or if the issue stemmed from his marriage, talk about what he's learned from, from a marital perspective. So I'm not buying this.
You've said a lot, girl. You've actually said so much more than I even thought we would go into. You've touched on so many things, but I honestly agree with you, because I hear victimhood, and you said this. I hear I'm the victim. I went through all this. I mean, to say been through the scars, wouldn't think I'd been through hell on earth. The reality is, had we not seen the incident that unfolded at that 2022 Oscars awards ceremony, we would never know. That you wouldn't be telling us about going through scars, Kintsugi first. We wouldn't be hearing any of this. So for me, I agree
also,
with you.
Isn't it Chris that has the scars? Chris is the one that got punched.
Thank you. He's the one that got boxed on national telly for doing his job, and he was doing a good old job at that. So let's not even go. So for me, I hear you. This is all, it does feel like gaslighting to me, because you hear this and you'll be like, oh, wow, yeah, they went through a lot, but look, he's rising from the ashes. He's coming back better. But it's like, no. He is launching into a new career, because for me, his acting career is it can't really be as he would like, because he's not going to be winning any Oscars anytime soon, because he is barred from the Oscars. He's been banned. People will never look at him the same in Hollywood. He's always going to have that element of, threat, after all the hard work he did at trying to mask everything, it all came out in the end. So now he's traveled into music. And in his words, he says, well, I never had the opportunity, because I moved into acting, to really master my music. And I never was able to master being a rapper. But the reality is, no, you did have the opportunity to master it. You chose to put it down. It wasn't popping off for you like the acting. So you chose to put it down, and you were content to leave it until you now needed something else to gain affirmation and put yourself in the limelight. That's my view. I also feel, to your point, your son is a rapper, artist, entertainer. Your daughter is a singer, entertainer. Would you not just put your efforts into maybe helping other people's careers? You're how old is Will Smith? 50?
He's almost 60. He's approaching 60, yeah.
Right? Man, you're not a whippersnapper. And yes, anybody can master anything at any age. I'm all for people pursuing passions as long as they have the mental, ability and physical ability to do it. But you also have children. You have a legacy to think about. Like, why not think about all the things you've been through? Like you say, Louise, really pouring that wisdom into the next generation. I'm seeing your son turning up at the Met Gala with a castle on his head.
He
I'm
could have
s-
mentored him.
I'm
He could have
sorry
mentored Jaden to not
to
wear that
not wear a
pattern.
castle. Like, that's not it for me. And I get that he was trying to share some, but some of these things, right, that your son is out here doing, they just look wild and they look like a cry for help, same as your daughter. So I feel like, why are you not putting some more stuff into them to stabilize them and support them? And Jaden was trying to run away from you. These are the things that don't really reflect well to me. Like, at 15, your son wants to emancipate himself from you. There's just a whole load of things in Will Smith that don't line up. But going back to this point, I agree. I don't buy this. However, he has made this record. So, Lou, what do you think about him as a rapper? That's the question I've got for you. What do you think about Will Smith? Just generally as a rapper, what do you think about Will Smith?
So the good bits are I really respected and appreciated his commitment to not curse in raps. That was sort of
Yeah,
his thing, that he was going to do family friendly rap music. And I think that there should be family friendly everything, so that anyone can enjoy it. And so he really created his own lane there, and I respected that. And I loved his early stuff. I loved his Big Willie style album. I mean, we've covered
yeah.
Miami on a previous episode, and getting jiggy with it, and even his stuff he did before that with, is it DJ
Yeah, Jazzy Jeff. Yeah, that
Jazzy
was
Jeff?
where he
Yeah,
really shone. That was his time.
yes, yeah. I think he's talented.
Yeah,
I think he's
yeah.
really talented, and I don't think I think he made it okay to be a rapper and not necessarily be
Hard
promoting the
body.
thug life element, which is, yeah,
100%.
the hard body. Yeah, so, and I think I think he has done amazing things. If we really reflect on what he's been able to achieve, to go from being in a sitcom to movies like Independence Day and doing the soundtrack for some of these movies, doing music and movies,
Very
and being
successfully.
very successfully, and then transitioning from comedy into real hardcore dramatic roles, like in the movie in
Yeah,
Pursuit of
Pursuit of
Happiness.
Happiness.
And then he played Ali, didn't he?
Yeah, he played
Muhammad Ali.
Ali. I mean,
From a professional perspective, I have complete and utter respect for him. No one can deny what he's achieved.
and I wonder if part of where a lot of this kind of, it seems, insecurity or these things come from Will Smith is that he he has got his flowers in that he's won the Grammys and the Oscars. But sometimes there's a way that you perceive yourself to be, or there's a
Mm.
way you want to be perceived. And a lot of that can be maybe comparison to others. And if you look at it, to your point, Louise, like, Will Smith is the first rapper to win a Grammy. He's actually the
Mm.
first in 1988. He's the first
Mm.
rapper to actually win a Grammy. First rap Grammy ever for the hit Parents Just Don't Understand. He had a platinum album. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper. He has some classic hits like Summertime that also won another Grammy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's actually a Grammy winning rap artist, one of the
Mm-hmm.
first to do it. But people don't really refer to him a lot. They more will refer to a Tupac. They'll
Yes, yeah.
refer to a Biggie. Now, those guys were kind of there at a similar time, but he had huge success. And I
Mm.
almost wonder, and this is just wondering, because, Jada, she came up really tough. She had this relationship with Tupac. They were kindred spirits before Will came on the scene. We won't go too much into that. But I wonder if there's always been this thing with Will where, because he hasn't quite got the flowers from maybe the rap community or maybe the black community, I don't know, he's always feeling like he's got to be more, do more. So in a time, like you say, Lou, where he should be chilling, he's old, like not old, but he's, mature, should be reflected, chilling. He's still trying to fill that void of affirmation. He talks about, and the other thing I want to say actually is that we also don't actually take the fact that Will Smith started in the entertainment industry very young. And we've
Yes, yeah.
talked about this, but he was 18 when
Yes,
he
yeah.
won his first Grammy. 18 years old. I mean, that is a baby. So really, the other thing about Will that I think we don't always take into account is that he's grown up in the limelight
Yes, yeah.
and really big. Like, he's been big in the limelight for a very, very long time. And we've touched a lot on these topics of child stars and things of that nature. But there are clearly some gaps that, Will Smith needs to fill. So I want to come back now to the concept that Will Smith talks about, this concept of Kintsugi. I think personally he's taken the philosophy and he's trying to use it to gaslight us. That's what I think. But whether you think he's doing that or not, because he's a master actor, whether you think he's doing that or not, I think there is some truth to what he's saying, and there is some truth to the concept and the things that we're supposed to take. So the life lessons we're supposed to take from Kintsugi are embracing imperfection. So just as broken pottery becomes more beautiful, we should be focused on the fact that our flaws add to our uniqueness. There's resilience and healing, that breakage doesn't have to be the end, and it can lead to transformation and strength. And then also finding beauty in the unexpected, that flaws can enhance rather than diminish. So I want to ask you, Louise, how can we as people, so you mentioned when you were speaking there that, there's nothing, Will Smith is not too far to be redeemed. Like he doesn't have to sit in shame and sit on a stoop and be wallowing for the rest of his life. So how can we as people, if we've experienced something like Will Smith, where maybe for a long time we've tried to hide something, it's come out, or we've just done something that has really impacted another person negatively, what are steps we can take to see that in the way that Kintsugi describes and take it as something that's beautiful and use as a launch pad to move forward?
Such a good question. I actually want to quickly touch on something you were talking about earlier. And what I see in Will is because of the kind of childhood he had, which was really tough.
Yeah.
And where he experienced some emotional neglect on the side of his father. His father was abusive.
Just to chime in, sorry, I'll chime in on that. He says that his father was abusive to his mother. A little bit, but what he actually says is that his father was always present for him. So it's not the story that we see with Jada where her dad was completely out of the picture. This is a story and came in late and it was always troubled. His father was very consistent, actually. At every game, at every show, always supporting him. And the other thing about Will is that his family is very supportive. I didn't know this, but I came to find that his brother is close to him, runs his business for him, is like CEO of his business. His sisters and him, like they're actually a very close-knit family.
But this doesn't mean his dad was emotionally present.
Yes,
just because someone is physically present doesn't mean they are emotionally present.
But that's what I wanted to clarify. Just that he wasn't one of those like people who just had an absent dad who was there. Like, that's what you might think, but that it wasn't the case. But I think to your point, there's nuances to that still have impact.
Yeah, what I was going to say is if he saw his dad beat on his mum, that is a form of emotional neglect, because I doubt his dad afterwards came to him and said, "How are you?" after seeing that or witnessing that, or his dad considered the impact it would have on the children seeing that. So that is emotional neglect. And the key thing I wanted to say is that he often talks about how he always felt like he wanted to protect his mum and never could. And so that is a seed of deficiency that was put in him from a young age, that he's not good enough, he failed. And then add to that the fact he was famous from a young age, and now we've got, well, who am I outside of being famous? What is my identity? That is a combination that makes what he did with Chris just make sense, right? Because what I see is someone who feels that they're never quite good enough. They're always trying to prove it something. And you mentioned affirmation, trying to seek affirmation. I totally agree with that. And externally as well, trying to get that external affirmation. But then also someone who can't quite let go of not being in the spotlight at the same time, because then who am I? And that is a deadly combination. That's a deadly mix. It makes for someone who may never actually be able to both be flawed and love themselves. I don't know if he can sit in the fact that maybe he has a lot of the demons his dad had. He's got a lot of undealt with issues, but he's still loved. He's still good enough and cared for and seen. It also is something that will birth a high achiever, those factors. And I do a lot of this in my coaching work, working with high achievers, and essentially being a perfectionist, being a high achiever, being ambitious, plus the two deadly factors mentioned. I don't know if he will ever stop. So he's right, coming back to your question, I don't know if he will ever sit down and stop. I think he sees it as resilience, but At what point do you say, actually, I'm doing harm to myself? This
Yeah.
is self-neglect. It's not resilience. I should actually be sitting down and doing the proper self-care, which is in here and in here.
Yeah.
And my thing with Will is I've got a lot of compassion for him around these topics, but he wants to project an image of the sensei. He's always the teacher, he's always the mentor, he's always the wise one that seems to know everything and the way to live, the way of life.
Yeah.
And it's ironic because he doesn't
He
know,
doesn't. He doesn't
actually.
know.
And that's okay. I think that's okay. I think he should just accept that and say, okay, you know what? I don't have all the answers. I'm actually still very messed up. And there's no excuse for how I've behaved because now my flaws have gone and hurt someone else. So that's what I was talking about in the beginning, where we now go beyond just being flawed.
Yeah.
And actually, we need to get some serious help because we physically harm someone else because of these flaws. There's a line between the two.
How can you, if you find yourself in that predicament, that you've had these flaws, you've tried to hide them or you've tried to cover them up, you've been functioning with these issues, and then it spills over and you impact another person? How can you move forward and, using the Kintsugi principle, use that flaw and embrace it as a platform to create something more beautiful at the other side?
I referenced this in the beginning. You've got to just learn the language of repair. There is a language of repair that intentionally and deliberately just makes things right. And I think that is creating something beautiful. That in itself, we all will mess up in life. I think Will's was quite high stakes. I think it, to me, represented an audacity that he needs to check. It was another level of audacity.
Next level,
and
mate.
He had time to think about it. You know, there are situations that happen where people just in a split second, you're there, they'll just lash out.
Yeah.
But he got up from his seat and he had time to walk to the person.
There was a walk. There was many moments
to deal with it. Yes. And he didn't. And it was, again, a show where there were other people. There was no consideration of the impact it would have on anybody else. So for me, it was just a level of audacity that I think needs to get checked. So the beauty that really comes in these situations is in speaking the language of repair, humbling ourselves to actually make things right. Do within reason, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Within reason, right? And then actually doing the inner work. It's not about releasing a song. It's not about doing another movie, getting another Oscar, getting another award. That's not rising from the ashes. The true rising from the ashes is doing that inner work to understand, learn, and grow from the situation in a way where we can help others prevent the same mistake or heal and comfort people who have made a similar mistake. But I think Will thinks rising from the ashes is getting another Grammy, getting another Oscar, releasing another music video, and it's not that.
The public liking him again,
yeah,
I think is what he
absolutely thinks. Yes.
And so I really want to touch on this because you said about the language of repair. And so this is a really good point because I was alluded to this before. I feel like a lot of people who are, entrepreneurial go-getters, we all kind of have this constant need to thrive, be perfect, do more, do better. Nothing is ever really enough. There's never an end point. How can we, as high achievers, go-getting individuals, we're both, entrepreneurs, we've tried and failed at many things. How can we, as those high-achieving individuals, start to exercise the muscle of speaking the language of repair? How can we flex that even in the small setbacks and the small failures so that when we are in our moments, our high stakes moments, maybe we're now millionaires, we're now speaking at conferences, we're doing all the things, or we've achieved all the things we wanted, whatever level that might be, we don't find ourselves in situations where what we've not dealt with comes to hurt us.
It's so funny you're asking this because this is literally the work that I do with my coaching clients. First step is speaking the language of repair with oneself, and that means repairing yourself. And what do I mean by that? Essentially, being able to reflect on who am I when I am not perfect, when I have not achieved, when I have messed up. Who am I besides all of that? Am I still lovable? Am I still valuable? Am I still worthy? And that has to be defined. Almost visualizing putting all that stuff aside, any award, any public affirmation, any recognition, accolade, money, whatever it is, you almost have to mentally put that to one side and say, okay, now what's left? And if what's left is someone that you don't think is good enough, is someone that's not worthy, someone who has failed, someone who's a failure, then the repair has to be made of that identity and of the view of oneself. And then from that place, you can start to confidently speak the language of repair to other people. But the identity of oneself needs to be repaired first. And you know what? It's not our fault. Society has told us that, we're only good if we've made 1 million by 25.
Exactly.
And we're only
30,
good if we've got...
Forbes 30 under 30, 40 under 40. You've got to make it.
Yes. And we're only good enough if other people are telling us and they're like following us on Instagram. I mean, society today is just one big popularity contest, isn't it? Because it's about how many followers you have. I mean, I've had that experience personally where once people see how many followers I have on Instagram, which is not a lot, but because it's more than, I say, 100, suddenly their demeanor changes to me, and I just think that is the wildest thing ever. And I think it's not our fault. We've been conditioned now to think that external validation has to come, and that's our value. And I think there has to be a huge work done across cultures, across geographies and nationalities to correct that.
No, I think what you're saying is so true. So that's another question, because you know that I'm really passionate about the next generation, how we leave the right legacy as people, and how we instill the right values for generations to come. How can we now, with people coming up, you mentioned a lot that what Will should really be doing is taking these lessons, this Kintsugi and all this philosophy he's got, he should really be imparting that into generations coming so that they don't make the same mistakes that really impact broader than themselves. It impacts them, impacts their family, impacts the community. And I think really we've seen a lot of things that impact the Black community as a whole. These things really have an impact on the community. What things can we be doing with our children or children around us or younger people that we're mentoring or supporting to almost push their mindsets away from the norm? The norm being your followers, your likes, Instagram, socials, all this stuff, and, push them more to focusing on who they are away from all of the external trappings. What little steps or what little ways can we be guiding people to that?
You know what? When people have not had validation at home in childhood and they didn't go through that childhood phase of feeling affirmed and validated, it can make them more susceptible to now craving external affirmation. I think that what can be done for the next generation is to validate children as much as possible outside, in the home, from a young age, and apart from anything external. Not because of things that they've achieved or not achieved, but just because of who the child is, and to start helping them craft that sense of who they are apart from anything else. When that is firmly established, things can't penetrate it as much, or make them question it. So it starts at home. We've got to do that work in the home. As I'm not a parent, but my heart goes out to all the parents, because I know it's not easy, but as parents, and even as aunties, uncles, whoever you are, when we grew up, our aunties were not validating
exactly
our identity and who we were, so whether you're an auntie, an uncle, anytime you're around a child or you're part of a child's nurturing and upbringing, reinforcing their identity in a way that is not attached to achievements and accomplishments and whatever. And then I know we talk about this a lot, but I do think limiting their access to social media is really important. I mean, I don't know what it's like to raise a 10-year-old today. I don't know if maybe it's impossible to restrict them from it, but doing as much as possible to do that. When I was growing up, and many people will probably have had this, my mum would give us these quiet times to just read and, to just have no stimulation. And I was listening to this mum, I think last year, and she was talking about how she has those quiet moments with the children where they actually just spend time alone
Yeah.
and doing something on their own, which is a great way to help to start to enforce identity. Obviously, we're not talking about neglect here,
Yes.
but we're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
an hour in the day for them to be on their own without a tablet, without a phone, and to create their own sense of fun. It could be drawing, it could be writing, it could be listening to
Exactly.
some
Yeah.
music. So that kind of thing where you're creating that separation between the child and external stimulation, whether it's social media, whatever, is really important. And then lastly, I'll say sharing lessons. I think sometimes we think kids are too young
Yeah.
to hear lessons and wisdom. And yeah, I think depending on the kid, they might not sit down and listen to your story, but also it depends on the delivery
Yes.
and on the relationship that you have with them. Making it so that a 5 or 10-year-old could understand it helps them to process it. And my husband always says, if you can explain something to a 5-year-old, you've truly
Yeah. You've
understood the
mastered it.
concept. So if we have mastered our trials, as Will says, he's mastered this trial. If we've truly mastered our trials and our issues and our setbacks, we should be able to
Yeah.
explain it in a language that a 5-year-old could
Yeah.
understand. So, and I'm always trying to work on that myself. I'm always trying to simplify how I explain
Yeah.
things because of how important it is to be able to even explain it to a child. So those are the three things I'd say. What about you?
Yeah, no, I think everything you said is really what I'd agree with. The challenge is, though, in this culture that we're in as a parent, if you are really conscious and really want to be intentional about the way you're raising your children and the things you want them to value, you have to be countercultural. And that's the part that's hard. So, example, right now, a boy of 7, what are most boys of 7, 8 doing? They're gaming. They've got a PlayStation. They've got a this and that. My son wants to be gaming. I say, no, you will not be gaming because that is stimulating you, is giving you dopamine hits that you're going to be chasing after for the rest of your life. And it really starts from that. Even now with his basic tablet, that thing, he wants to be on there. He wants to be looking at a screen. He wants to be doing the game. I have to minimize that. Now, every child is different. I don't want to say that if you allow your child screen time, they're going to, become Will Smith. I'm not saying that. But I think it's knowing the young person or the individual you're dealing with, taking them as an individual, not creating this thing that like, oh, well, it was okay for this one, so it's going to be okay for that one. Really get into grips with, the individual you're dealing with. Who are they? What are the things that you can see in them? You've got to really get to know a person for who they are. And like you say, outside of what they're good at and what they can do. And then you have to really not be afraid, like I am with my children, to be countercultural. No, you will not have that.
But don't you think, Omar, every generation requires some level of countercultural
yes,
parenting?
every single
Because even
generation.
when you and I were growing up, we were told no. At least my Yoruba mother wasn't allowing me to just go out and gallivant all the time.
I couldn't do sleepovers. I couldn't do parties.
Neither
I'm
could I.
actually grateful for that now, but I didn't do
Yes.
sleepovers because I know what the young people were doing. And had I been exposed to that, me with my in the mix inner self, who knows at a young age what I would have found myself in.
It was the norm back then, right?
But that was the norm.
Just like gaming was the gaming of today.
And that's why I say, for me, not being afraid to be countercultural. Your child might feel a bit like, oh, I'm not doing the things now. But in the future, they're going to turn around and say, I'm so glad that actually my mum made me wait till I was a teen. I didn't have a phone at 10. My son will not have a phone until he's in high school. I know that's wow now because
it
is because children have phones at 10. They've got phones at 9 because people say they need to contact people. And, I don't know why or what other reason, but what are children really doing? There's bullying increasing. There's all these things increasing because there's so much access to communication. I think it's dangerous. I don't think until you've mastered your emotions, your ability to communicate, saying what you mean, I don't think you should have access to so many means of communication. I think it's dangerous because you're only going to ever be communicating stuff that is nonsense. It's going to be harmful to yourself. It's going to be harmful to other people. So get them to the point where they've mastered communication. Then let's open up the communication lines. That's my view.
That's true.
At
That's
10,
very fair.
you don't know what you're saying, right? We all know it.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were saying. So for me, I think we need to do that. But again, it's countercultural. And I think that's the key for me. Don't be afraid when you are dealing with people, another generation, you're trying to shape the next, group of, successful people, or the next group of stars. Don't be afraid to be countercultural, because having the right values is what is going to keep people when the pressure comes. And the storms of life will always come, but what's your foundation? And I think that that's the most important thing for me. So buttressing what you've said, I think everything you said is exactly what I think is true, but also really push yourself to not be afraid to go against the grain.
Really good.
So yes, so with that, I think we can probably wrap this one up now. But if you could say a couple things to Will Smith, because we love Will Smith. I'm going to be honest and say, Will Smith, look, he's been in this game for a long old time, and he does deserve his flowers. He's paved the way for a lot of people, a lot of young Black stars. He's done a lot, and we have to recognize he opened a lot of doors for young Black men that would not be open otherwise. For a young rapper from Philly to transfer into being one of the most, one of the most successful actors in Hollywood, with all the accolades to boot, with the family and all the that's not easy. That's not easy to do. So Will Smith, you get your flowers for that. However, we can see that there have been some challenges. So what would you say to Will? If you could talk to Will now, a couple things, what would you say?
I'd say, Will, you're highly treasured and valued, but I want you to see that you're valued with or without the Oscar and the accolades. I want you to see your value apart from your fame and your celebrity. And when you're confident in that value, you can confidently show remorse, accept when you've messed up, accept where you've not only messed up, you've got issues that you need to fix, but you're still loved and valued with or without those things. So that's what I'd say to him. Find a space where, without the spotlight, without the fame, without the celebrity, you know that you are valued. And I know that must be so hard after 30 or whatever odd years of just constantly getting affirmation externally and accolades 100%. And building success off that. I know that must be so hard, but all the more reason why I think actually he needs time out of it, out of the limelight.
I agree.
And to just really do that work.
Yeah, 100%.
He should know he's treasured.
100%. I love that. Will, we love you, but just sit down, cool off, take some time. It doesn't seem that rebuilding a new career, which is, all your achievements is going to be down to how many records you sell and what the critics say. Doesn't seem that is the safest space for you right now. So that's what I'd say. But yeah, thank you, Will, for these lyrics. Thank you for pressing through. And, we look forward to seeing the rest of your transformation journey. Brilliant.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.